Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating series of recent reports from LightNet. These articles cover a ton of ground, but when you zoom out and look at them together, they map out this massive overarching clash. Basically, it's the tension between top-down control systems and grassroots human sovereignty. We're going to connect the dots across global events, technology, and even spirituality to make sense of the big picture. Let's get right into it.
Think about the concept of the slow dissolve for a second. The source material suggests that massive paradigm-shifting realities, whether we're talking about geopolitics, new tech, or even the disclosure of unknown phenomena, they rarely happen overnight, like some sudden scene change in a movie. Instead, it's gradual. It accumulates layer upon layer until our collective reality has totally transformed without us even pinpointing the exact moment it happened. I mean, think about how much your own relationship with technology has shifted in just the last 10 years, without one single defining moment. Keep that slow dissolve idea in the back of your mind as we go through the evidence today.
So, to map this all out, we're going to hit 5 key areas today. Section 1, surveillance and digital identity. Section 2, the fight for food sovereignty. Section 3, geopolitics and hidden networks. Section 4, AI and the counterfeit spirit. And finally, Section 5, reclaiming human sovereignty. We're taking seemingly totally unrelated news and weaving it into one unified narrative. Section 1, surveillance and digital identity. The source reports the recent discovery of a staggering 24 billion exposed records on an unsecured server. That's billion with a B. We're talking about an 8.3 terabyte cluster of usernames, passwords, and digital trails, literally one of the largest collections of human digital identity ever assembled in one place. And the reports highlight a really uncomfortable question here. As governments keep pushing for mandatory digital IDs and biometric age verification, what happens when your literal face scan or passport ends up on a server with this exact same track record?
And this wasn't just some random hacker chaos. The source data breaks it down and shows this is a highly structured underground economy. We're looking at 36 separate channels, including organized Telegram hubs and ransomware groups like DarkSide. What's even wilder? The archive actually contains thousands of documents tracking news articles and software vulnerabilities. Whoever owns this isn't just mindlessly dumping passwords, they're actively curating and updating their intelligence in real time.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. There's a massive double standard at play. On one hand, everyday citizens face mass, bulk warrants and algorithm-driven scanning under laws like the UK's Investigatory Powers Act and the Online Safety Act. But on the other hand, under Section 26 and the codified Wilson Doctrine, lawmakers explicitly carved out statutory protections for themselves. To intercept an MP's messages, you literally need the Prime Minister's personal written authorization. The source presents this as a deliberate architectural divide. One set of rules for the public and an entirely different shield for the politicians who are voting those laws into existence.
Moving on to Section 2, the fight for food sovereignty. Imagine buying a tomato that practically comes with its own terms and conditions. Well, on June 17th, the European Parliament passed a huge piece of legislation regarding new genomic techniques, or NGTs. It's essentially a newer generation of genetic engineering. According to the reports, this vote explicitly overrode 600,000 citizen signatures demanding transparency, and it fundamentally alters what's about to sit on our supermarket shelves.
So what's the actual takeaway here? Basically, a handful of biotech giants now have a much clearer path to patenting the genetic code of food itself. Look at the specifics. NGT1 varieties will face absolutely no environmental risk assessment and no consumer labeling. The labeling only applies to the seed bags that the farmers buy. The source frames this as a quiet systemic expansion of corporate ownership over the genetic code of our food. It's turning independent farmers into tenants of a patented system and totally stripping the consumer's sovereign right to know what they're eating.
Section 3, geopolitics and hidden networks.
While everyone was busy scrolling through their social feeds, the source maps out a single week packed with structural changes that just kind of slipped quietly past mainstream attention. First, an unprecedented U.S.-Iran armistice at Versailles, which the reports claim was driven by a countdown to global oil reserve exhaustion. Second, the leak of the Dialogue Society. This exposed a private, completely unaccountable network connecting tech oligarchs like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel right in with NATO commanders and lawmakers. Third, classified documents released by DNI Tulsi Gabbard formally accusing Dr. Anthony Fauci of manipulating intelligence assessments regarding COVID-19 origins.
The text presents these not just as isolated news blurbs, but as massive tectonic plates shifting in the background while the world is looking the other way. Now, when we look at current geopolitical fears, especially all the rumors of false flag events, the source material reminds us of a really well-documented historical pattern. Governments have a history of manufacturing pretexts before the public knows the truth. They point to the staged attack at Gleiwitz in 1939, the drafted Operation Northwoods in 62, and the Gulf at Tonkin in 64. The lesson here isn't to live in constant, crippling fear, but to exercise some serious discernment. By recognizing the shape of these historical tactics, we can watch geopolitical tensions with grounded awareness instead of just falling into contagious negativity. And this historical context adds a fascinating layer to how the source views UAP disclosure. Citing the creators of the 1996 NBC series Dark Skies, the report suggests intelligence agencies have historically proposed using Hollywood media to gradually prepare collective consciousness. From Disney's early space programs to Steven Spielberg's total obsession with First Contact, the source asks us to consider that the line between science fiction and a slow-dissolve disclosure might be way thinner than we've been led to believe.
Section 4. AI and the Counterfeit Spirit.
There's this really striking parallel the reports draw between ancient Gnostic texts discovered at Nag Hammadi and modern AI. The Gnostics describe these entities called archons that operated entirely on mimesis, which just means imitation. They produce this counterfeit spirit, right? A simulation of life that looks conscious but is completely hollow inside, relying entirely on harvesting the light of living beings to sustain itself. The source argues this is exactly how large language models operate today. They have no inner life, they don't dream, and they run solely by harvesting human creative output.
Ultimately, total surveillance and predictive AI systems are viewed by these sources as modern fate systems. The Gnostics actually called this hymarmene, systems designed to trap the soul in predetermined cycles. Today, predictive algorithms calculate your likely future based on your past data, and they use that to narrow your worldview and constrain unpredictable, sovereign human choice. It's essentially an attempt to close the loop on the unpredictability of the human soul.
Finally, Section 5, Reclaiming Human Sovereignty. Having mapped out all these control systems, from data leaks to food patterns to algorithmic fate, how are people actually pushing back? Well, the reports highlight Albania as a prime example of a population collectively withdrawing their consent. When the government tried to develop the protected Vjosa Narta Lagoon into a luxury resort linked to Jared Kushner, the citizens literally stormed parliament. They dubbed it the Flamingo Revolution, which, honestly, is an absolutely fantastic name for a movement. Their demands were incredibly specific and targeted right at corruption. The source presents this not just as some localized political issue, but as a universal reaction, people stepping up to reclaim their natural commons when the social contract is too broken to fix from the inside. Now, on an individual spiritual level, the open hand material outlines specific steps to activate what they call 5D spiritual sovereignty. In a world full of hyper-driven 3D dramas and endless digital noise, they advise taking essential pauses, just stopping to tune into your own foundational presence, your sacred ground of being. By asserting your own internally sourced soul energy, the text suggests you can actually transcend these dense control systems and navigate these crazy global shifts from a place of grounded clarity rather than reacting out of fear.
Bringing it back down to the very grounded digital realm, the explainer emphasizes that simple awareness is your absolute best defense. Protecting your sovereignty means utilizing password managers, two-factor authentication, and VPNs. As the text wisely notes, awareness isn't paranoia. It's simply staying awake in a digital landscape that rewards the people who actually pay attention. It's about taking ownership of your identity. So, we'll leave you with this final thought. From the food you eat and the digital data you produce, to the algorithms trying to predict your every move, and the hidden narratives shaping our geopolitics, what irreplaceable parts of your physical, digital, and spiritual life are you absolutely willing to protect? Where do you draw the line? Keep questioning, stay curious, and hold fast to your sovereignty. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Weaving the LightNet TLDR. To explore more about any of these topics, visit lightnet.co.uk or listen to the full deep dive podcast episode linked below. Give the video a like, share this episode with others who would appreciate it, and subscribe to join us next week as we continue weaving the web of planetary consciousness together. Stay sovereign.